Hey everybody, I'm Greg Sowell, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. My guest this go around is Scott Wiener. This dude is pizza personified. He's been running a pizza tour business in New York City since 2008 called Scott's Pizza Tours. This guy is live and spontaneous, as everything he does is custom catered to what his audience is interested in. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure, maybe but with pizza instead. He's done a couple of other things, like written a book on pizza box art, has the Guinness World Record for largest pizza box collection, writes a column for Pizza Today magazine, and has done a TV-like series for Thrillist called Really Dough. And it is extremely fun. Like, I could totally see that on Food Network. He also has a nonprofit called Slice Out Hunger. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Scott. Scott Wiener, thank you for joining me on the Why Am I podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm psyched to be here.
Yeah, right. Psyched to be here. I have to say, I feel like we usually do the fantasy restaurant. It's kind of a warm-up. It's a nice, gentle jaunt through a park, but I feel like we just did a sprint. We just did a 100-yard dash. You are hard to keep up with. So keeping that in mind, you and I, we have places to go. We're not in a huge rush. We're in New York City, and it is the New York Marathon, and so we're playing that game where we've come upon the race, and we're trying to figure out how to get across the street. And so we're both contemplating the best strategy to dodge the runners. And so we just kind of strike up a conversation because we're not in a big hurry. We're cutting up, cracking wise, and we start talking about me a little bit. We exhaust that, and now it's your turn to reciprocate, Scott. So who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you, man?
Wait, so we're at the marathon.
We don't literally have to be at the marathon. I just usually like to come up with a weird scenario.
But how did, like, you don't know me at all, but we just met at the marathon?
Yeah, for sure. Because we're just trying to get across the street.
I got you. So you're like, hey, I got to get across the
across.
street. You look like you're trying to do the same. Let's work together.
Yeah.
We don't know each other. And I'm like, first, tell me about yourself. And then you're like, yeah, I get it. I got colorful lights. I got a cool microphone.
Well, how about it's this way? We discussed the best policy to get across. And I'm thinking we sort of go with the flow of traffic a little bit, right? So we kind of run on a diagonal to get across, and then we find out we're both going to the same pizza joint right across the street.
Okay.
And so I'm not with anybody. You happen to be alone this morning or evening or lunch or whenever it happens to be, and so maybe we're going to sit down and have a slice. How's that?
Yeah, I love that. And it's actually it's great that you want to go to a pizza place, because I spend most of my time in a pizza place. So if I wanted to explain to you who I am, I'm a person who almost consistently inhabits pizzerias.
Habits.
Yeah, like almost every moment that I'm not at home, I'm in a pizzeria.
That's so funny that you call it a pizzeria. Like we don't. I'm from Texas. I live in Texas. We don't usually refer to them as a pizzeria.
Yeah, I mean, a pizzeria, that's a place where you get pizza, just like a gelateria is a place where you get gelato.
Yeah, or a tireria, or
that sounds tires.
Or where do you get your diaries, right? Let's see. Oh, so you inhabit pizzeria. I love the idea of inhabit. It almost sounds like you live in them. Like you just kind of set up a cot in the back. Tell me why you spend so much time in pizzerias.
Well, because I grew up in New Jersey. I live in New York now, and the pizzeria is a social location, just as much as it is a place to get food. So when I say inhabiting pizzerias, you really do. You set up shop, and it's a great hang spot. It's a great place to catch up. It's informal. And so that's why I'm spending a lot of my time in pizzerias. And, you and I, we just went into this place right after we successfully catapulted ourselves over the marathon line. And what am I going to do after that? Probably going to say, oh, there's another good place like half a mile down the road. Let's do it.
So the way I found you was doing a little bit of research. I wanted to talk to somebody who was a pizza historian is what I started searching for. And I found my way to you, and you do pizza tours. You've started pizza. I mean, there's obviously a lot more to it than that, but I would assume that's probably one of the big reasons you inhabit pizzerias. Or were you doing that before? Were you pretty much living, eating, and breathing pizza before you started doing the pizza tour?
I certainly was obsessed with pizza, but I didn't spend as much time prior to having it be my career. I started doing pizza tours officially in 2008. And then once that happened, I had no reason to get out of the pizzerias. So all I would do was spend all my time in pizzerias learning, asking questions about the history, about the science of pizza making, about all of it. And that's really the core of of who I am.
Hmm. So 2008 pizza tours. Prior to 2008, you were just like, man, I wonder if people would like me to take them around and feed them. Like, where does one get the idea to do that? That seems
Well,
interesting.
I found out that I liked being sort of a tour guide. I liked the informal education aspect when I used to give people tours of an old ferry boat that was in the town where I was living, a town called Hoboken, New Jersey. And there was this old ferry boat, and I spent a lot of time working on this ferry boat, kind of almost as a volunteer. And people would ask questions all the time about, oh, hey, like I see you painting the side of this thing. What's the deal? And I would take them on tours of this old historic ferry boat that's over 110 years old. And that's the bug bit me about the whole education process. But I didn't want to spend all my time giving tours of the historic ferry boat. I was really into pizza, and I thought, well, if those things could combine, wouldn't that be great? So I took a bunch of friends of mine for my birthday. I took them on a little pizza adventure where I rented a school bus and I had the driver take us to various pizzerias. And it was just the most fun ever. So my friends begged me to start doing that. And then I started doing that in 2008, April.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it is 100% obvious that you are a performer. Have you always been kind of a natural performer? Like, where did that come from?
I don't know where I came from, and I wasn't always. I mean, I used to play a lot. I used to play music, like in high school and college, and I think that's where the performance aspect came in. Because when you're playing music in front of people, they're watching you, and it's, if you're really into what you're doing, then people like that as well. So I would play the drums, and sometimes people would notice that, like, oh, I'm not kind of sitting still and hitting drums. It's it's a full body experience playing a physical instrument like percussion. So I guess that's where the performance thing started to happen. But before that, I was definitely shy. Not after that though.
You weren't like a drama kid or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Theater kid?
I feel like I was in some of the school plays, but it was just because my friends were, you kind of had to. But in high school, I never did. I was more on the tech side.
Huh.
Yeah, so not a performer ever. Not zero interest in acting or any of that. My older brother's an actor, and I used to go see him in shows, and it was amazing. But I never once considered that I would be interested in anything like that.
Huh. Well, what is your? I mean, is that a thread that kind of runs through your family, like performative arts sort of thing?
Yeah. So my mother was a birthday party clown. That helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like she still busts it out every once in a while, for her grandkids. But my mother birthday party clown. So I think there's maybe some little bit of what my brothers and I have on the performance side must be from that, because my father's certainly not a performer.
Now, what was your dad doing?
So he's a lawyer, and I guess when he did some trial law, there was some performance aspect to that.
Yeah.
Sure, but I mean, talking to him, you would never get any sense that he enjoyed performing in front of anybody.
Gotcha. So is your mom pretty laid back, cut up a lot?
No.
No? Oh. So she saves that for when she puts the clown makeup on.
Yeah. I mean, she likes entertaining. She likes people. She's a social person, and that's what I'm into as well. But I didn't figure that out until a little bit later in life. Well, not later in life, but until high school and college.
Well, where'd you get your sense of humor?
I don't know. Where does anybody get a sense of humor? The Simpsons, and not even this. And I didn't watch as much Simpsons as all my other friends, but you get it from your from my older brother would watch certain movies, and I would get into them because of him, and
yeah,
I that's just kind of what happens. I think there's also the pleasure in enjoying the moment, which is not, I don't think it's ever anything that you teach anybody, but you just kind of like figure it out once you realize that, the moment that you're in is the only time it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
You might as well enjoy it. And there's always something fun to happen.
That's cool. So are you the one in the friend group that's always cracking up, always being crazy, making everybody laugh?
I got a lot of crazy friends. So everybody's sort of like that. I mean, I'm the one who has my career path is more about that. So I guess when I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm probably a little toned down.
Really? You pull it back a little bit? Because
Probably.
I found with my funnier friends, it's like we do this thing where we just go up higher and higher and higher to like make the other person laugh. It gets a little insane.
So this is kind of interesting. I mean, when I'm hanging out with my friends, they are definitely funnier than I am, but I never have any interest in trying to one up anybody because I'm enjoying being entertained. I don't need to participate. I can participate all day for the work that I do.
Gotcha. So you do that on stage, and whenever you get off stage, you kind of want to just relax a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it all depends on the situation. Like when I'm doing a pizza tour where I take 10, 20, 30 people out, we go to pizzerias, and I'm their guide and I'm their teacher. I'm explaining the history and the science and the nuance of culture about these pizzerias that we're visiting. I know that that's my task. And once in front of the curtain, that's what I got to do. But just hanging out with friends, I don't have any drive or any need to do that same thing. I'm not afraid of it, but it's just there's no need to. I'm not in the center of the stage, so
yeah,
I'm not the person who needs to create a stage and take over.
Well, tell me about the education part, the teaching people stuff. Did that sneak up on you a little bit? Surprise you that you liked conveying that information over to folks?
It did, and I think so. I've always had some teaching thing in me. My first job in high school was I was like an assistant teacher at the Hebrew school, that like I used to go to, and I would be like a teacher's assistant. And I kind of enjoyed the ability to be able to present information to people who didn't know it yet, and to be able to like take them on the ride that when I was asking a million questions, it was nice to be the person who could then answer those questions. So that's where that kind of began. And then in college, I was a TA for one of the classes that I first took the class, and then I was TAing the class. So that was pretty cool to be, involved on that side of things. But I always hated the hierarchy between teacher and student. That this split, that teacher is up here and then student is down here. So the tour became a way for me to kind of pull teacher and student onto the same plane. And I'm just there to provide the information, but I'm not there to talk down at anybody. I really try to teach these tours, to lead the tours, based on questions and not based on what I think you need to hear. So that's why the educational part of it is like, I say it's informal education because there's no training. I don't have any formal training, but you get a sense of what people care about and what they want to know, and what's the best way to convey the information to them in a way that it'll stick. Because at the end of the day, it's not worth anything if it doesn't stick or if it's not applicable to what you're doing. You know how in school, were you ever in a class when you would like raise your hand and even say like, when am I going to need this in my life? That ever happened to you?
I don't think I was ever bold enough to actually say it, but I would think it in my head pretty often.
What do you remember one specific time where you were like, when am I going to need this?
It was probably Spanish class when I was like drowning in there. It was just, oh my God.
But that was a way to explain to yourself why it's okay to fail the class, because you're like, you know what? I'll never actually need to know this. But then who knows? In real life, that may have been the most important class.
Yeah,
depending on what work you do.
For sure, man. Like I've learned over time that no experience is wasted, right? It's like I can learn something from anything I do. And I genuinely do. I change and grow all the time based on the stuff around me. And I've learned that I sometimes have to force myself to, because, sometimes it's nice to just stay at home. And then it's like gets easier and easier to not go and do stuff. So, yeah, I have to kind of force myself out of those habits and those rhythms pretty frequently.
Yeah, well, you just got to book stuff. book yourself to go on a trip, book a restaurant reservation, book a show.
Yeah, for
Me,
sure.
it's all about the schedule. It's just I obey my calendar. So all I have to do is get something on my calendar and then I know I'll do it. But if you say, oh, do you want to go do something right now? That's sometimes harder.
Yeah, and I definitely live and die by my calendar because I try and stay pretty busy, which is funny because sometimes people in my life don't necessarily like that because it's like, oh, you want to go do X, Y, Z, and I'll say, well, I've got this stuff. And they're like, I guess that doesn't work. And I'm like, well, you just tell me when you want to do this. Like my wife, for example, I'll say, just let me know and I'll put it on my calendar. She's like, I'm not something you should be scheduling on your calendar. I was like, bro, this is how my brain works. Like it keeps the voices at bay, like having a calendar that I can live by.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. But also you got to schedule yourself maybe some free time.
Yeah, for sure.
So if your brain works by scheduling, but her brain works by like, no, you got to have flexibility, then schedule some flex time that you can't do anything else.
Yeah. Well, I just say you just tell me what you want to do in a rough time, and I'll make a hole, right? Like even if there's something on there, like my time is always flexible. I just gotta know. Like I don't.
Plan it, yeah.
It seems it's like counterintuitive.
I guess it doesn't work if you say, okay, on February 8th from 8 to 11 a.m., I'm going to have spontaneity time.
Yeah. And now I start riffing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was thinking about kind of you talking about the informalness of it and, like being a teacher versus, because, yeah, like whenever you think of like teacher and student, there's definitely this, this void between that's oftentimes I think artificial. It's like, because the teacher is supposed to be the holder of knowledge, right? And you as the student are the one that, has to learn from this person. But it seems like you're doing more, you're more of a guide kind of on a journey sort of scenario, right? And as people ask questions, you sort of move one direction or this. So is there some kind of improvisation to your stuff? You're not just on rails with everything you do?
It's like 95% improvisation.
My
So
gosh.
if you and I were on a tour right now and I just met you and I said, hey, I just saw you at the marathon. What are you doing over here now? The tour would be all based on what you cared about. There would never be a moment where I said, all right, and now is the time to tell you about the origin of the word pizza or something like that. All that has to flow. And it's almost like, I don't know how computers work, but I think the way they work is, they kind of like grab that information as it's called for by the user, right? All that information's there. It doesn't spit out stuff for you based on what it thinks you need. It's like you're asking it for information. So the way the tour works is I've got a ton of information. And then if you ask a question or something happens in the pizzeria right in front of us, they use the oven in a certain way, then I'll reach into that bag of information and pull out the thing that's applicable. It can't ever just be, all right, now I'm going to tell you all about tomatoes, even though it doesn't make any sense right now. It's got to, the moment has to hit. So if you take a tour and then a year later you come back for a tour again and you're waiting for me to say a certain thing that you really enjoyed the first time, it's like almost no chance I'm going to say it again. Or, I've had people who say, oh, tell us about Famous Rays. Remember last time you told us about Famous Rays? And I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense right now. There's no reason to talk about that. You got to access the memory bits as needed.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like it's more of a conversation. Like
it's totally
a back and forth where it's organic and kind of unfolds. That concept of that is so exciting to me. Like the idea of you never know what's going to happen. Like it could be completely different every single time, which to me makes it a replayable adventure.
Yeah, and
just
I never
keep going back.
I never planned it as like, oh yeah, let's do it like this so people will come back and take multiple tours. But that's what it's become. When people take their 10th or 15th tour, they're excited to just have an experience, another adventure. It really is a journey. It's not so much a tour as it is this like journey through the cosmos of pizza. And so tonight's tour, it's going to go to the 4 different pizzerias. I'm picking people up from a company that I've done tours with before. So the odds are I've probably had a few of them before, but it doesn't matter. They know it's going to be interesting information. It's not going to be like, oh, now's the time where he's going to tell us XYZ. It's like, no, I'm going LMNOP right now.
Yeah, I love it because it also sounds like for us, we're always looking. We live in a moderately sized town, and we get bored here a lot. And there's not always tons of stuff to do that's nearby, so we end up traveling like down to Austin or whatever, because there's always stuff to do there.
Wait, are you in Dallas?
I'm in a place called College Station, so it's an hour and a half from Austin, an hour and a half from Houston, and about 3.5 from Dallas.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought Dallas. So, okay, I get you. So when you said moderate sized town, when you're going for an adventure, it's a kind of a serious situation. You're driving an hour and a half.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Everything in Texas is like an hour and a half away. It's just kind of what we're accustomed to. That's like we don't measure distance. Like some people will say how many miles things are. Like I'll hear other people. It's like it's not how it works down here. You talk about how long it takes you to actually travel to said place.
Yeah, because I guess the roads, it's not like direct.
Yeah, it takes a while.
There's
It
probably
takes a while to get anywhere. Yeah. I mean, moderate size. We're like 200,000 people, so it's not tiny, but it's also not super substantial. So you kind of run out of stuff to do. So I like the idea of something baked in that's interesting, fun, appeals to me, because if you ever ask me if I'm hungry, it's not whether I'm hungry or not. I will say I could eat, because I could always eat, right? Like the time is now for me to eat anytime. So yeah, like interesting, funny, like you mix all that together. Yeah, it definitely sounds repeatable to me. So I love the concept of that, the spontaneity as well.
It's got to be like that. I mean, like, is there a subject that you could talk to people about for like 3 hours straight? Is there like one topic you could do that with?
Oh, probably. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm certain there is. I like to muse over things. I like to do hypotheticals. I like to just have somebody challenge what I think and feel, and have a conversation about it. But
were you in like debate clubs in school?
No. I was super socially awkward and quiet and shy and terrified of the world. So I didn't really do anything that required me to interact with other humans if I could help it. Yeah.
And now this is like the opposite. You're interacting directly with humans.
Yeah, I do it. Yeah, I love public speaking. I love performing. Yeah, so it's kind of a 180 from the person I used to be, and also used to have hair, right? So it's falls out.
180.
Yeah.
Did that flip happen for you? Like, how old were you? Were you a teenager, or was it later?
It was a slow migration over time, just like my hairline. So it just took time.
I mean the performance part.
Oh, all of it. All of it was a slow sort of migration. I think where I really found out that I truly love it, probably in the last maybe 5 years, where I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it was very, very slow. I mean, we're talking about glacier movement, right? It's almost imperceptible.
Hey, movement is movement.
True enough. Like I said, I say that to people. I'm moving forward. You may not be able to tell, but I'm always moving forward. Yeah. But yeah, this people don't generally ask me about myself on this. You're flipping the script. You're going full Scott on me here.
There is no script. It's I mean, what use is it just sitting around and waiting for somebody to ask you a question about yourself? It's kind of silly. Like I think. Well, you have more interesting things to talk about when two people who have never met get to know something about each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I didn't know you were bald.
Ah,
no, I'm just kidding.
Now the secret's unlocked.
Well, it's always funny to me when like exactly what you just asked me before about when your personality is forming, or when the big changes happen, if they happen quickly or slowly, or what is it that makes something really flip. And when I started doing tours, I think I didn't realize until the first day that I did a tour, I didn't fully realize what I was going to be expected to do. But it was that moment where I was like, wait, I'm about to start. I remember I was setting up inside a pizzeria, setting up the tables and everything, and then I went outside to greet the guests who signed up for the first tour, who were mostly friends of mine. And I just thought, I'm walking out this door, and as soon as I walk out this door, it's like the curtain is open, and I'm not a performer. Wasn't really a big part of my life, but what am I going to say? What are you going to do? And then I just said, it doesn't matter, because 11 a.m. and that's when the tour starts, and I have to open this tour right now. And so it's kind of like, making plans to do something. It's, you just got to do it, and you got to open the door and step out. And it was probably that moment where I was like, okay, I'm on. Once you're on, the next stop is, the end of the tour.
Yeah. Did you feel exhausted at the end of that first tour? Were you just like wiped out?
I don't know if I was exhausted, but I definitely felt winded because, when you're on, there's this adrenaline rush and it kind of takes over. And, the pain that you have from like, that you hit your elbow that morning or whatever, it all goes away because your brain is pushing all the energy into something else. So when I'm on a tour, it's kind of like when you watch those preachers and they're like, I'm preaching a lot and like all this energy and all this, and then probably at the end, then they kind of like deflate. There's some of that energy that I totally identify with, where you're like just kind of pushing it all out because that's your time to do it. These people are here for that. They paid money to have an experience. And then afterwards, there's definitely like a recovery period where you need to like take a deep breath, sit down on the couch, watch an episode of the X-Files, then eat the ice cream.
Well, I didn't know if this was going to be something that like you found out actually energized you a lot, or so that it like kind of took a lot of energy out of you, or it sounds like probably a combination of the two, huh?
Yeah, it depends on the day. Like the daytime tours will energize me, but the nighttime tours will make me more tired.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, when I finish a tour at 11 p.m., then you're like, okay, because it's been a whole day of doing other work. And then 6 p.m. starts a tour. Like today I'm doing tons of stuff today. And then at 6 p.m. I'll be doing a tour. And that doesn't end until 10:30, 11 o'clock.
That's cool. Can you imagine yourself doing anything else?
No.
This is it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure I could do other things, but I can't imagine any of them. I mean, look, when the pandemic hit, I couldn't do tours because you can't take people to restaurants. You can't get a group of people together. So I had to figure something else out. But everything that I do is within pizza. It's not like I was like, all right, I'm going to start mowing lawns now. That's my new thing. It's like, no, there's got to be another way for me to educate people about pizza.
Is that when you started doing your like online pizza classes and stuff?
Exactly.
Like that?
That's when that started. I could make pizza. I could teach pizza making, but I'd never run formal classes until that.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm assuming in those classes you're teaching people like the science behind everything they're doing, right? Along with it.
Yeah. So, we're making dough, we're making pizza together. And as we're doing things, I'm explaining why does this work better than this other thing? And it's all about science. Why does it not work to mash up your dough before you stretch it? So this way you know that it's, there's a reason to not. Once you know the reason for something, you're way better at avoiding it or going toward it. If somebody just says, well, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, for me, that's like, well, it's probably not the only steps. I could probably do a million. I'd rather teach you what are the things that will mess you up and just don't do those.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because genuinely when I learn, it's by doing it wrong over and over and over. But if I can get a cheat code and somebody can share a little bit of wisdom for me, and it saves me a lot of time, I'm definitely for it. But also, for me, like, if I'm just going to have somebody tell me the steps to follow, I could just read a recipe. To me, there's no richness there. It's not an experience. It's not like a fun thing. So it's not what I would be looking for.
That's why like something live and interactive is great. It's better than a video is really good, but live and interactive is even better. Like, when I met you, the first thing I was asking about was, you got these lights. And then when you explained to me that, putting some cool lights behind me, it distracts from the fact that you probably have junk on the shelves over there. I don't see the junk, I see the lights. And that to me is like, I will never forget that. And it'll be useful to me. Instead of just saying, step 1 of running a podcast, put up some lights.
Yeah, for sure.
Way more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I could dig it, man. So you do a lot of stuff outside of just doing tours. And I mean, you genuinely have made your like whole being about pizza, which is like so fascinating to me. Is there anything you do outside of pizza?
Yeah, I mean I sleep
Okay.
sometimes,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
not really pizza related. I do have like a life that pizza doesn't infiltrate, but I work wise, everything I do is connected in some way to pizza. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to play music a lot more than I do now. And that's probably the thing that's the only real bummer is that all the energy that I have really goes into pizza stuff. And so playing music is harder to get to.
Do you feel like you've just taken your creativity that you put into music and you're putting it into, say, like your tours and stuff? Because it sounds like it's a tremendous amount of creative output that you're actually putting into that. So, are you just sort
Yeah,
of funneling
definitely.
that energy somewhere else? Do you feel
Yeah,
like you miss the music piece? Like it's a missing piece from you?
I do miss it because the thing that's cool about music is like creating combinations of sounds
Hmm.
that are really like pleasant sound. Like I really
Mm-hmm.
like the pulling sounds together. It's not so much about performing the music that I liked at all. It was more about like pulling it together, the production aspect. So I studied music production and I worked in music production before I was doing pizza tours. That was like my whole thing. In fact, right now, like my computer is sitting on top of a mixing console and all my audio gear is right here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this is the metaphor. It's just there to hold up a laptop so I can talk to somebody about pizza, which I'm not upset about. You know, like there's a billion things that I could be doing that I would enjoy much less than when I do, like almost anything. But you know, there's always got to be something else. You can't be a monotone. And I think like pizza is so much a part of my life, but it's pizza tours, teaching the online classes. I run this nonprofit called Slice Out Hunger, which is a hunger relief organization that works all across the country. I do just everything that I do is all little bits of pizza. And that's all because I really like the idea of education and the research that I do, like the historian stuff. You said before about being a pizza historian. I love learning where things come from. And so it's that history thing that I really got into with the boat, the ferry boat. Now I just apply that to the pizza stuff because it helps what I'm already doing.
Gotcha. And the education piece just kind of feeds a little part of your brain like, hey, I'm helping these people, it's going to make this thing stick. And then you also mix in the performative aspects, so it sounds like you're taking all these amazing rather all these amazing ingredients that like feed you in some way and you're kind of putting them into one place. It's I think it's pretty rare that people actually get to do that, and people have the balls to do that, I should say.
Well, and the luck. I mean, the fact is, when I started doing it, I was living. I mean, I kind of skipped over or I buried the lead a little bit. But when I was working on that old ferry boat, I was living on it for free.
Oh, okay.
So, so when I started running pizza tours, I didn't have rent to pay. So I was living on this boat that I worked 20 hours a week on the boat, and that allowed me to live there. So I had this safety net. So it wasn't even having the guts to do anything. It was really just, I just knew that if I didn't do it then, it would only get harder to do later in
Hmm.
life. So when I was 25, 26, that was the time to go for it. So, so once I went for it, I went 100% for it. I didn't just say, oh, I'm going to start this and maybe I'll have a 5 year plan where I'll add something in 5 years. It was just like, what can I put into it right now? I didn't sit there and calculate, oh, how expensive is it for me to, spend a whole day in Times Square handing out leaflets about the tour. I didn't stress about stuff like that. I was just like, I need to get people to learn that I'm doing these tours, and I have to know what I'm talking about. So I have to do a lot of research. How do I get all this stuff done? And it was like, okay, I'm working 20 hours a week on this boat. There's a lot more hours left in the week.
Hmm.
I'm just going to put them all to this. And that was that.
Okay. So take me to the time where you're doing pizza tours and you're I'm assuming you're going to eat dinner with your parents. What's the conversation like with them? Like, hey, this is who I am now.
Yeah, well, I remember very specifically my mom saying to me, she said, so is this what you're doing now? Meaning like, is this the main thing? Because I had had kind of harebrained schemes before that. And it was, is this what you're doing now? And I said, yes, this is what I'm doing now. And I was kind of annoyed that, like, yeah, why would you even ask? But of course she would ask. And she said, okay, just you have to think about a lot of things. Running a business, you have to know marketing, you have to be, bookkeeping properly and paying your taxes and all these things. So it was by that point, it wasn't a huge shock to their system. I had already done some things that they weren't totally on board with, on a career sense. But with this, it was just there was an acceptance, even though they didn't totally get it right away. It took a long time. I mean, when you have to know that like your parents will almost never be like they're always going to be concerned for you because
Mm-hmm.
your well-being is what they care about the most.
Mm-hmm.
So the concern is not distrust or disbelief or anything. It's just concern.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of have to prove that like it's very easy to go into a line of work where there's a playbook. I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a architect, I'm whatever. But with this, it's different. And when you say, "Oh, I'm going to be a tour guide," that's an even that's really different. And this was, I'm going to be a tour guide that runs my own company that does tours of only pizza in New York.
Have they done any of your tours yet?
They have, yeah. I mean, I've been doing them for 15 years. So my parents, they used to come every Mother's Day. I think my mom still shows up on Mother's Day. But my mom will show up sometimes and I'll say, "Oh yeah, hey, we're going to be in Staten Island." And my parents live in New Jersey, very close to Staten Island. And my mom will show up at the pizzeria and she'll be holding the door for everybody. And she'll be like, "Yeah, hey, come on, I'm Scott's mom."
That's so fun. That's so fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. Parents never stop worrying. And I didn't fully understand the gravity of that until I ended up having kids myself. And it's hard for me to sometimes celebrate stuff first because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to celebrate first and then gently ask the questions like, have you thought all this through? Have you thought about that? Because like my brain just wants to start looking at potential pitfalls and like trying to like protect them from it. It's like, no, you celebrate first, then talk about the pitfalls. Yeah.
When did you learn that?
I don't know, last week? No, it's it definitely, it took a lot of time because like that's occupationally, that's what I've done pretty much my whole life has been a problem solver, like a fixer. And a lot of times I've been in positions where it's really stressful and I'm at the top of whatever ladder I happen to be climbing at the time. So there's nobody else to ask. And so when things are on fire, you just got to fix them. So get accustomed to doing triage all the time, right? Like 5 things are on fire right now. Which one of these is going to burn us to the ground? Which one is just going to give us a 1st degree burn? Well, let me put that one over there and let me swear all this stuff. And so like I have just trained myself to do that so much for so long that my first inclination is to always fix. And I have tried to untrain myself like with people to not always be that fixer, to just listen, acknowledge, or celebrate. Definitely my partner has taught me to celebrate things first and not always look at the pitfalls because, sometimes they just want to be excited about something. They want you to be excited about it. It's like, I get it. So it's like turning that part of my brain off can be really difficult.
Yeah, it's a really tough skill to know what somebody wants from them telling you something. So if somebody's sharing information with you, maybe your desire is to, "Oh, let me help you problem solve all that." And then they're like, no, I don't want that. I just want you to say, "Great job."
Yeah. Yeah. Or somebody will say, "I'm thinking about doing this." And so I'll immediately say, "All right, well, we would need to do step 1, step 2, step 3. And it's like, that's not where I'm at. I just want to be excited about it. It's like, oh yeah, I get it. But I also realized my brain doesn't necessarily react like neurotypical folks do. And so when I take in information, sometimes it runs through a different filter than people are accustomed to. And so it's just, that's, I don't know. I've learned that I just don't necessarily think like everybody else. And so I had to kind of retrain those parts of me to sort of better suit the people. And what really works well is when people tell me how they feel or what they need. Like if you tell me that you enjoy it when I do this thing, or you like it when people do that, I will do that from now till forever. Like it is super easy, but people don't necessarily speak in those terms, right? You have to read all of these subtle indications from people or body language. And I'm not always great at that. When I've learned that I am super verbose and I have zero boundaries. So I will tell anybody anything, and I will have a conversation about anything. And when I appreciate something, I will tell people that, you know, so because I want that to come back, but it never comes back because people don't work like that. Like normal people don't tell you how they think or feel or what they want, because they can subtly pick that up from others. But like that doesn't work for me. And so it's been definitely a journey, through wandering through life, kind of like if you're a Price is Right fan, like a Plinko chip, just kind of bouncing around, sort of trying to figure your way through it.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the case with everybody?
Yeah. So we've all got a different set of things going on. We're just navigating the world, right?
Yeah, it's funny the way you say it. It's like maybe few to no people in your orbit think in the way you do, but you're never the only person who thinks in the way that you do, which is cool, but also frustrating.
Yeah. Well, it's also when you learn that you process information differently than most people. It's like, well, that's crazy. You know, it's like, okay, well, let me sort of refactor based on this new information. I am kind of like a computer. Like if you, because like I've been in IT for like my entire career, did computer science and stuff like that. And like computers are exceptionally stupid, right? They are very, very dumb. You have to write a program, and in that program, you have to tell it everything you want it to do. I remember when one of my first computer science classes, our exercise was, all right, I need you to write down on this piece of paper how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Or let's say just a peanut butter sandwich. You're just gonna make a peanut butter sandwich. Write it down here. And so everybody wrote it down. And so the teacher took a couple of them and he started going through it. And so he looked at it and he said, okay, grab the bread. And so he grabbed the loaf of bread and he put it in front of him. He said, okay, put peanut butter on it. And then so he took the jar of peanut butter and rubbed the outside of the jar on the loaf of bread. And it's like you fail to realize that computers require every single step. You have to say, undo the twist tie in this fashion, open the bread, pull out the slices individually by grasping them with your hands, right? Firmly grasp the jar, unscrew the lid using the other, like you have to literally tell them everything. And some people,
but then they work for you. Then they
then they're great. But the crazy thing for me was learning that some people's brains actually kind of function like that. I'm not quite to that level, but sometimes there's pieces where I need people to tell me how they feel when I say this or that or react, right? Like so that I can put that in my computer brain and then properly react the right way.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's just also really funny that you act like a computer and that's the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it made sense to me. It felt right. I don't know about for you, but I remember when I got into computers, I knew this was it. It was like, this is the thing. Like these make sense to me, and I can continue to grow and evolve with this, and it opened up a lot of pathways for me.
Yeah. No, it works. And then now, at what point did you get into this, I guess, kind of like a side gig of what you do with the podcasting?
It was kind of a natural progression, like everything. There's never been any eureka moments for me where I do something great and monumental, like starting a pizza tour. Like to me, that's bonkers. And I know to you, it feels, the way you described it, it felt like kind of a slow progression, but also it was also not, right? Like there was a moment where you had to say, okay, this is this big thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to go do it or whatever. But for me, where I live, a little bit smaller, there's not a whole lot of people that, at least at the time, I identified with, or really, whatever. Like, you find your tribe, your people sometimes. And I found all of mine mostly through the internet, right? Like doing IT stuff, and then go to conferences, and then all of my people would be there. So it was like a method for me to keep hanging out with them. So I was like, hey, let's, why don't we just schedule like a group call every so often? And then After the first couple, it was like, they're really good, like really good stuff. And I was like, why don't we record these and make it a podcast? And so then it was on the calendar, right? It's on my schedule, and everybody showed up. So I got to just hang out with my friends and talk about the stuff we were interested in. So did that for about a decade, and I actually just retired from it from this year because I moved out of that industry, and I don't know, I felt like I outgrew it. And I found the part I liked the most was interacting with people, like meeting people, talking to people. And so this is something I've wanted to do, this like one-on-one with another human, for a really long time. And finally got the opportunity. Well, I say got the opportunity. The opportunity was always there, and finally just decided to start doing it. And
took the opportunity.
Absolutely. But it was also not monumental, not dangerous. Here I am, safe in my own little office, and talking to people over the internet. So it
doesn't feel monumental to you, but to me, it might be. Like that. What you're doing is a bigger step from what I would think. Like in my opinion, what I do is just very closely related to what I was doing before I started doing pizza tours. But from on the outside, it looks crazy. And I just think it's the same when I look at what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, what do they say? Like, everybody's living a different movie, right? And when people look at it from the outside, it's so easy to see kind of what's going on. But when you're inside the movie, you're an actor, you don't know what's going on. It's like, it's harder to kind of keep track of that stuff, and to see those beats. And I guess also, if you live it day by day, it doesn't seem like it's some big monumental thing. No. When you look at it from the outside, you kind of compress the timeline, it does look pretty crazy sometimes.
And I guess that's good perspective for, like, when you're looking at what anybody else is doing. You're like, well, what you're doing is a big difference too. Whenever I look at any, like, you got a studio set up here, you got this like boom arm, this nice lighting, the whole deal. Like, that's a whole, that doesn't just, you don't snap your fingers and have that happen.
Yeah, just takes time. Slow progression, slow and steady, kind of always building upon the last thing just a little bit more and more.
Yeah, that's life, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I also, like, this is an interesting mixture of things. One, I love the performative aspect because I love creating art or things that I think other people will enjoy, but I'm not an artist by any stretch of the imagination. But when I meet an amazing storyteller, then I can perhaps share that with somebody else. I love that aspect of it. Two, it's like therapy for me. So I can sort of like learn and grow through other people. But also I can listen to somebody talk, and I've gotten much better about it. And I can feel what they're saying, right? I can empathize. I can actually put myself in there and ask them questions based on how it made me feel. And I've more accurately honed that in. So my assumptions have gotten better and better over time. So it actually helps me interact with other people all the time. And also, Kickstarter for this to really get off my butt and start it was during COVID. And I realized how much social interaction actually did contribute to my overall well-being. And this was an opportunity for me to make actual human connection with other people, like really amazing, cool people that occasionally are crazy enough to say yes to talk to a complete stranger. And then, it's been good all the way around.
Who was your first guest who was a complete stranger?
It was a guy named Professor Tim Wilson. He is a British guy. I think he's at Oxford in England. And I found him because he was a reality TV star on a show called The Circle. And he was just so charming and so funny in like an unexpected way. I don't think he really 100% knew it. But also kind of like this, he's an older guy, but also sort of this naive way he looked at the people around him, right? Because they were all playing the game and he wasn't, right? It's this game where you're supposed to like make everybody like you and try and engineer your way to the top. And he was just being him the whole way. And I was like, man, this dude's the best. And so, sometimes you just shoot your shot, you reach out to people, and occasionally some really interesting people will reply back, like yourself.
What's the return rate like what's the percentage of people who say yes?
It's not great. So you gotta, it's,
is it 1 in 10? Is it?
It depends. So some people, I don't know. It really depends on like what industry you're in. and also
Oh,
how much research you do. So say, for example, I ended up going to Upwork and getting a research assistant. So I'll just come up with topics I'm interested in, and they'll go and do the research and help me find people, which is amazing. Somebody told me one time, do what you're really good at and find somebody else to do everything else for a good price. So, that's definitely worked for me. But one of them was, I was like, I want to talk to a bomb technician, like somebody who's like worked in that industry for a long time, like just to see, where they are, their expectations before going in, during, and then what it looked like after, and then looking back at their experiences and stuff like that. But it is a fairly close-knit community, and they are fairly tight-lipped. So finding somebody to talk to you there, a little bit difficult. So, not surprising. Some people that are in more performative industries, it's a little bit easier to find folks or things like that. But you never quite know. And I've talked to some really amazing people that are like really renowned kind of in their industry or what they do, and they were kind enough to say yes to me. So it's, I don't know, you never know. You never know who's gonna come back and say hello or whatever. But I also think about this stuff as like legacy, right? It's like, what kind of legacy is a person gonna leave? And I know I'm never gonna have millions of dollars where there's gonna be a building with my name on it, but that's not important to me necessarily. Like I don't care about people remembering me in that fashion. What I've learned is the best way to leave a legacy is through people, right? And I'm never going to have a huge stage to do it to hundreds or millions of people at once. Like some celebrities actually have kind of a pool where they could do that. But for me, it's doing it through individuals or changing hearts and minds little by little. And this allows me to do that, right? Like I can talk to somebody, and definitely it changes me. Every one of these conversations makes me a better human. But then you put them up, and then you hope that somebody else will see it and maybe take something from it, right? And so it's just tiny little imperceptible ripples that will outlast me. And when I'm long dead and gone, hopefully people will be moving in a slightly better direction because of contributions.
that's
So
very cool.
it kind of sounds maybe like a little bit of what you do, right? Like the education piece. Like you're saying that you want to tell people something in such a way that it sticks. So it's probably like a funny anecdote or something interesting, and that will forever change that person, that they will carry on with them. And it's like, it's people, I think some people underestimate their impact that they have on the world because they think maybe they're just one person and they're not changing that many people, but you're taking groups of people and impacting them by firing them up about the thing you love, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, it's just it's cool to know that you can help make somebody's day or give them an experience that resonates with them for much longer.
Yeah, for sure. Or, just something as small as an affirmation or a kind word, right? Like even if you're the only bright spot in that person's day, at least there was something positive.
Yeah, or I think more often than that, it's just allowing somebody to think a certain way or express an opinion in a certain way. Like, you'd be surprised, of course, when talking about pizza, if you get close enough with people, then they start bringing up things that are, like, oh, what about I like my pizza like this, or my feelings on pineapple or something.
Pineapple,
like
I was gonna say.
Yeah, and you allow.
Wars have been
like
fought for less.
Yeah, and that's why, like, kind of the point with Really Dough was about how there's no rules, and pizza's this kind of thing that the debate is the interesting part, and the debate is also kind of useless because all that matters is that something makes somebody happy, and why would you ever get in the way of that?
Yeah. And so Really Dough is a show you did for 3 seasons, and I've made it through most of season 3, and I started at season 3, so I'm getting ready to go back and watch the others. I see what you mean by that, because for you, it's all about the experience, trying something new. And at the end of the day, because like you guys are trying to determine, is this really a pizza? Is this not a pizza? Because golly, I think you guys have done like donut pizza. There was like ice cream pizza. It's just some pretty wacky stuff. But at the end of the day, it's, did I enjoy this experience? Like, I get the premise. Is it really dough or is it not or whatever? But it's just a really fun, charming show that really gets to show your improvisational skills. Because like I was expecting it to be something like very scripted, but it feels like you just like quite literally everything that comes into your head comes out of your mouth, and that it fascinates me because I don't know what's coming next.
I didn't either. It's unscripted. That's the third season is the only thing that has anything close to a script because there was an outline of like there's a plot in the first two seasons are I go out or I tell Mark, the other guy who hosts the show with me, I tell him about a crazy pizza. He says to go out and get it for him. I go try it, meet the chef, bring it back to him. He eats it, and then we debate the nonsense of whether or not it's a pizza. And the whole point is that it doesn't matter. You know, it's not like a food show that decides for once and for all if something's really a pizza. And then the third season is like, because of over the first two seasons, they just kind of let us go, and it turned into some kind of like a funny relationship between us where he's this great pizza maker and I'm sort of like the super fan. And then the third season just played off that. So they would give us an outline, but they would really just say like, okay, talk about, ask him about what he thinks about this. And it was just, we just had to figure things out as we went. So even watching it, I'm like, why would I say that? That's crazy.
Was it just the two of you and like a camera guy?
No, there was actually a pretty big crew for this because they had people with, lighting, multiple cameras, producers. And I think by the third season, there might have been like 10 of us.
Oh, wow.
And then an editor who wasn't with us, but an amazing editor, Chris Murphy, who the reason the show works and is really funny is because of him.
Oh, yeah, because it's tight, charming. There's a lot of fun beats. I mean, I love the editing in that because sometimes you would start saying something, they would cut you off, right? Like the idea that
it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so well put together. Was that your brainchild, or somebody approach you with that?
Thrillist came to us and said, "Oh, we want to do a pizza show, and we think it's going to be about trying these weird pizzas, and we think it might be called Really Dough." And I was like, "Okay, well, that you're going to change that because that's a bad name." And then they were like, "We think we might ask you to do it, and we think we might ask Mark from this place called Lucali in Brooklyn." They're like, "Do you know him?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know him." He's like he's a weird, funny guy. And they're like, "Okay, meet us next Tuesday, and we'll shoot the first episode." And I was like, "All right, do I need any prep?" They were like, "Nah, just meet us."
Oh my God. So it was really like a trial by fire just to see if it was going to work.
Yeah. Well, the first, I don't remember what's the first one we shot. It may have been the gold pizza, but there were definitely ones that we shot where I didn't know what it was going to look like at the end. There's none of them that we knew what it was going to look like at the end. Like when it aired, or whatever you call it, when it's on the internet, when it was on the internet, it was the first time that we saw Final Thing. So we were like, oh, that's how they used that weird moment that we were driving around in a car and didn't know what to talk about.
But something else I noticed is your enthusiasm is like so infectious. Like you feel like a kid in a pet store.
Well, you gotta, think about it like this. There's this like Thrillist, this internet content company, whatever they are. And they were taking us around to these great pizzerias. I got to spend the day hanging out with Mark, going to great pizzerias, and somebody else was paying for it. And it was like, this is like a fantasy. Like, how could you not be excited?
Yeah. And also the idea that you're getting to meet, I'm assuming, at least on the third season where you were actually traveling, like a lot. Well, I mean, I know you knew some of them, but you were getting to meet like new people and talk to them about like their art, the thing they love, which is the thing you love. So, I mean, you actually were genuinely excited, right?
Yeah, I was just a fan. I mean, and the ones where I knew the person, I think we always said it. I think I always said, "Hey, I know you." Like, we never try to make it, dress anything up. There was no lying on there. It was like, no, I really never met this person before, but like we knew of each other. So that would always be fun.
So how does that feel to be something of a celebrity in the pizza world?
I think that's a little extreme. I think it's just that. I think it's just that the thing that I do is not a. There's not a lot of people who do that because to work in, it's just pizza. You own a pizzeria, you run pizzerias, you work in a tomato company, you work in a flour company, like you're a consultant. There's a lot of things that are functional restaurant jobs. And then the thing that I do is hard to explain because it's more like being a professional pizza fan, but that really makes it downplays it a lot.
Yeah.
It's just it's hard. I think now there's a culture of like influencers, and that culture of being an influencer only has to do with the content, and it doesn't have to do so much with the intention. And the thing that I think I do, or I try to do, is way more about the intention than it is about the specific content. So it's not just about like, oh, I'm going to show you another flashy video of a pizza. It's really more about encouraging people to think differently. So to do that, I've developed great relationships with people in the pizza business for the past 15 years, and it's in every part of the business. So just to be able to do that takes a long time and dedication. I couldn't have done it if I had a full-time job. I had to fully dedicate to this.
And that's, I mean, would you say that you are immersed in the pizza stuff? Like you write like a column for Pizza Today magazine. Like I went and read some of your stuff, and I really liked it too, because it's very conversational. It's like you're just telling me a story. Like you're just talking to me. I really enjoyed that too. But also you've like written a book. You've got like, your Guinness World Record of pizza boxes and all that stuff. So you really have like taken great links to, because it sounds like you don't do anything by half measures, huh? You just kind of fully jump into everything.
I mean, I try a lot of things and fail at a bunch of things, but the stuff that you'll hear about is the stuff that works. Like the Guinness record thing is, it's like, oh, like I was writing a book about pizza boxes. I was collecting a bunch of boxes for the book. And then once you have a lot of something, your first thought should always be, could this be a Guinness World Record? Right? And that was it. Like, why not? You send an email, go to their website, see what it takes to get a record, and then, okay, it worked. Cool. And that's something that what I think about it is Guinness World Records. As a kid, I always thought about it as like, this is the definitive list of the special elite force of people. And then like you realize later that it's like not exactly that. There's like a business behind it and all this. But the Guinness World Record is this like known thing, and it's really specialized. And to be listed as the one person with the longest hair is cool. It's just like cool to see how you can like single these things out. And in a world that is this big with this many people, I don't know if there's really one person who has the longest hair and somebody else doesn't know that Guinness World Records exist and they have longer hair. I don't know. But I figured it was a cool way to send out a signal that if anybody else collected pizza boxes or was interested in pizza box art, if they see that there's somebody who holds the world record, maybe they'll reach out. And I've gotten to know people over the years who say, oh, I heard about the world record and I also collect pizza boxes. And I'm like, great. This is what it's for.
That's fun. Why pizza? Why pizza? Well, I mean, obviously I know why pizza, but how's it that like box art like grabbed a hold of you? Like what specifically about that was so fascinating?
I just wanted to know everything I could about pizza when I was doing the tours, so that if somebody showed up for a tour, that I would be 10 steps ahead. If you ask a question, I have to have a response. I can't be 100% stumped. I at least have to have something. And the pizza box is pretty significant for pizza. Like 2/3 of all pizzas in America are eaten from a box at some point. So that's what it was for me. And then when I noticed that not all the pizza box art was the same, then it was like, oh, I got to save this one because this is cool art, or this one's limited edition. And the fact that it's ephemeral just means that saving it is even more interesting.
Yeah. Ephemeral and also designed to be discarded.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's like saving bar coasters. They're like cheap throwaway things, and when you save them, it removes it from its original intended context. That makes it way more interesting. Do you collect anything?
People.
Actually, yeah. There you go.
It's the
People.
only thing I collect.
What about like for people who you're friends with, like in person? Do you do you seek out a diverse group of friends in person, or is it really more in this format?
Um, I would say it's definitely in this format as far as diversity goes. There's just where I'm in, there's not a lot of options. I do have a lot of diverse people kind of in my friend group. Not that it's huge or anything by stretch of the imagination, but it definitely is different than the vast majority of people. I would say a lot of them are different than the average of the area I'm in. I'm in the middle of Texas in a super conservative area, and I'm a weirdo, right? So it's
Mm.
I try and
But
find
I'm
other
even thinking
interesting
about
folks.
I'm even thinking about like so you have, a bomb expert on your show. You're not going to walk outside and shout out in the middle of town. Is anybody a bomb expert?
Yeah, yeah,
So in person, it's a lot harder to like collecting people. You have a lot wider net doing it like this.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I've believe it or not, I've actually made friends through doing this. So some of the people that I've interviewed, I've ended up. So I travel for work a lot, um, and I ended up in their town and went and had lunch with them, had dinner with them, and genuinely made friends, which wasn't exactly my initial intent, but I mean it's definitely a bonus. It's
Well,
really cool.
if you ever get to New York, we're going to a pizzeria, not a pizza restaurant. We're going to a
Pizza.
pizzeria, and we're going to have a slice, and then you'll get it. You'll get the whole thing.
That's cool. Well, I anticipate coming back to New York. 'Cause I've been there once. I went in 2018, and it was an amazing experience. I'm definitely a city person. Like I love urban environments and stuff like that. And I had never experienced anything like New York, right? So we have big cities here, right? Like Houston, was it like third biggest population or something like that in the US? But it's here, everything is so spread out, right? Like genuinely and we don't have any good public transit or anything like that. So you're just in a car, you're going places. So I don't know, you don't seem to interact. Why there's huge populations, you don't seem to interact with that many people. But when I got to New York, it was just, I mean, it was alive. It was like an anthill that got kicked over. There was just people
It
everywhere.
is,
And
and it really is like an anthill. I mean, we all live in apartments, so it's not like you live
yeah.
in a house and your neighbor is like all the way across the lawn. Like my neighbor is on the other side of that wall.
I genuinely remember when I first got there, I put in my earbuds and we started walking where we were going, and it felt like the whole city was moving to my soundtrack, and it was just I really, I really, I don't know, fell in love with it. And also I saw like all this diversity. There's all these people that were just so different from one another, and to me, it was just like this huge opportunity for me to like learn something from this person or that person. I bet that person's fascinating or interesting. Just the crush of humanity was just so attractive to me. Which honestly, if you go back to when I was a kid, that would have been like probably one of my greatest fears, being in a group of that many people. And now it is like the thing that attracts me the most. It seems
Hmm.
so counterintuitive, but yeah,
You did a
just the
180.
yeah, in so many respects, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love
It's,
that about the city. Being on the subway, it's a character study. Hanging out in one of the parks, Washington Square Park, it is just a character study.
for sure. You think you're a New York City dweller for life? You're gonna stay there forever?
Yeah, it's likely. I don't think it's the only place I could ever be happy. Whenever I leave it, I always like I always enjoy wherever I am, but then I miss it after 4 or 5 days. But
Huh?
yeah, if I stayed here forever, from my perspective right now, I'd be pretty happy about that.
I so cool because it's such a mixed bag. You never know. Like people say, I grew up there and I couldn't wait to get out. Some people, it seems like a place that really has like a gravitational pull that sucks some people in. Like people that have never been there their entire life, they know they're destined to go there and move there and
Yeah, I
just stay
never felt
forever.
that. And I grew up 20 miles from where I live now, but I never thought that this is where I would live. But I'm looking out my window right now, and there's not a lot of tall buildings where I live. It's like short buildings and houses, and it's Brooklyn, but there are certain blocks that you would think are like the suburbs.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah, New York City is not just one thing. It's you could find your own little pocket of it and make it work for you.
That's cool. Sounds like a lot of opportunity for
Yeah.
whatever it is you want, right?
I mean, you could come here and start a crazy weird tour just about pizza and it works.
And I noticed you guys have like other guides that work for you, like doing tours and stuff like that, which I think
Yeah.
is so cool because we were talking about the diversity of the tour. So like if they go and do a Scott tour, it's never going to be the same twice. Not only that, but you can get other personalities, which I think is like talking about diversity on diversity.
Well, yeah, like Laura is doing a tour right now, and the tour she gives is different from what David is going to give, and that's different from Amy and Krista and me and Paul and Dan. Like it's all different flavors with the same information, but just different ways of talking about things, and each person has a different specialty, and that's like that. That's what you want. It's like what you said before. It's not programmed. It's not scripted. It's just you have to react to what's happening in front of you.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Do you like, have you compiled like a list of tomes that you have people read on pizza just so they can
Yes.
help
Oh,
build
there's
up
a
their
whole
knowledge?
study guide. It's crazy.
So is it like you prescribe them various books to read and then go through and all this other stuff?
I wish I could do that, but it's more like every few weeks we go out and go to a pizzeria or we go on an adventure to a cheese factory or a food distributor or something. I give them little briefs of information, like a little dossier about flour. And then I'm always sending them like, oh, here, check out this article about tomatoes that just got posted on some website. And then there's a reading list, but it's all optional. It's just more like if you want to be better prepared for this question, read these books. But
Have you ever thought about taking people along for those little learning adventures, like those teaching adventures sort of things?
I'd rather keep that clustered to the tour guides because it's really hard to do with too many people. It's like running a tour. A tour of 30 people is hard to schedule. But if it's 6 or 7 of us guides, then it's just easier for me to do. But I guess in the long run, it would be kind of cool to take people to some of those extra credit places.
Yeah, that fascinates me because like the how it's made piece is really interesting to me as well. Like seeing behind the curtain.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it's the same with people. Like how you got to where you are now, endlessly fascinating to me. Like the end product is interesting and it's polished and it's cool, but how did you figure that out? Like, like to me that's well, I guess that really maybe I just had an epiphany. Because that's kind of how my brain works. Because I can't always fully understand why people do the things they do without additional information. So it stands to reason that people's journeys would fascinate me so much. Well, there you go.
Look at that. It just happened. We just watched it happen.
Yeah. I can retire now. We're good. Turn the sign on the door. Lock it. We're good. Let's go.
No, that's just the one little spark in an endless set of sparks for you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, one more thing. That's fascinating. Yeah, we have this concept in IT called rubber ducky debugging. Like whenever you run into a problem, the idea is you have like a rubber duck sitting on your desk and you explain the problem to the duck in such a way that it can understand. And by doing that, you figure things out. Like you actually come up with a solution for the problem. And that's how I figure out most of my stuff. Do you have an inner monologue? I don't.
An inner monologue? Nah, it's probably all outer like yours.
Yeah. So most of my stuff I figure out loud.
Yeah, it's much easier to do that. Oh, I always have to say, well, I have this, and this is there, and da. Otherwise, if I don't hear myself say it, then I won't know it. And if I do hear myself say something, then I'll remember it. If I like look at my phone and say, "Don't forget to do the laundry," then I'll remember to do the laundry. Yeah, I have to say that loud.
All right. Well, Scott, I could quite literally sit here and talk to you over and over, forever and ever, and probably revisit the fantasy restaurant, the best fantasy restaurant we've done. I've got it on record. It's here. It's staying in the podcast. So I'm definitely gonna launch that one alongside this to the public so everybody can hear it. It was too fun. But Right here at the end, I always like to ask my guests, is there any way you'd like people to specifically interact? Any social media, maybe your website, anything coming up, new and big and different?
Yeah, all the information about what we do is at scottspizzatours.com, and Instagram is Scott's Pizza Tours. That's the best way to keep track of our day-to-day, and also to just shoot a message about something. But, for anybody who's looking for something like doing a tour, the website has all the info.
All right. Wicked. So if you guys are going to do something special or different, does that pop up on Instagram as well?
Yeah, it's usually on Instagram is the spot for that. And then, of course, Slice Out Hunger is a separate organization. That's sliceouthunger.org. And then we have a website that's called pizzaresourcecenter.com, which is where we sell home pizza making equipment and books. You just asked about books that I recommend. Well, when I started teaching the online pizza classes, everybody asked about what should they buy, what books should they get. And I have relationships with everybody who writes the books and everybody who makes all the products. So I just sell them all direct so you don't have to go to Amazon. So
Perfect.
that's pizzaresourcecenter.com.
Yeah, I've tried to start shopping local as opposed to the Big Jungle website if I can help it.
Yeah, that's the Big Jungle website. Yeah, so I try to do that. It's tough because e-commerce is its own huge animal. And I'm trying to run a tour business and a nonprofit, and the e-commerce thing is hard to get around, but we have really great books that are harder to get in other places, and some equipment that's much harder to get in other places as well. But it's all the stuff that I read and the stuff that I use.
All right, cool. Well, Scott, thank you for your time, attention, your energy, your enthusiasm, and your sharing your love of pizza.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this show. This is so cool.
All right, let me click stop on all this stuff now.